Let's go.
Welcome to Our Drummers Musicians, your backstage pass to Melbourne's vibrant music scene. Recorded on a cosy couch in Brunswick, join us as we explore what it truly means to be a musician and speak to the diverse talents that make music in our city. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with my old music mentor, Mel Sedergreen. Mel is not only an accomplished and highly regarded jazz saxophonist and educator, he's also a very humble human being. Mel has a rich background in jazz, blues, and improvisation, having performed at all major national festivals and venues and internationally. He has shared the stage with prominent artists such as James Morrison. I wish.
I saw him, but no, I didn't share anything.
Shared the stage with prominent artists such as James Morrison, Don Burrows, Bob Sedergreen, Branford Marsalis, Ted Vining, Bernie McGann, and Allan Browne. Additionally, he has supported international legends including Branford Marsalis, B.B. King, Ray Charles, the Phillip Morris Superband, David Sanborn, Nat Adderley, and McCoy Tyner. He has also toured twice nationally with blues legend Jimmy Witherspoon. As a highly regarded music educator, Mel inspires high standards of performance from ensembles and stage bands. He currently directs the stage band program at Bourne High School and teaches at the Lauriston Hauqua campus. He continues to perform regularly, often alongside his father Bob. Join us today as we delve into Mel's lifelong passion for music, discuss his enigmatic style, and explore why he's affectionately nicknamed Yoda. We want to take a moment to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians on the land in which this podcast was recorded. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hey Mel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, great to be here with you, Mr. Singleton.
It's been a very long time.
It has been a long time, but you know what? Once burnt, twice shy.
Well, what's the most recent album that you've listened to?
Whoa, that's a great question. The most recent album. Look, I'm constantly, I guess today with how life has changed for me and how I used to find out about my music, which was obviously going to the record shop, buying albums, and then into videos and stuff like that. Is just sort of scribing across YouTube and trying, and that. So I'm trying to think of an album that this is the album I'm dealing with at the moment, Fantastic Scout. But I can't think of one offhandish. No, she's fine, Lucky.
Okay.
She's part of the podcast. One offhandish that I've sort of listened to that's sort of taken my fancy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I tend to listen to a lot of things, you know what I mean? But I can't think of one. I mean, they've gone and put on an album, that's happening. It's just I've always had a sort of varied and wide taste in music, so it's just whatever comes across.
So when you're watching videos on YouTube, are they like live concerts or like playlists that you put together or someone else has?
Just various things, checking out any of the artists that you might, seeing what's happening and how it's going, or chasing down various stage band arrangements that you might have in mind to bring something new to. So yeah. I mean, we walked in here and you were playing the Griffith Park collection, and I talked about that album. So I mean, there are so many albums, and I guess the great thing about a great album is that you can continuously listen to it and find something in it. So no matter how many times you listen to Kind of Blue, there's always something else in it, even though you might have listened to it a zillion times. So yeah,
that's so true. Well, is there anyone that's inspiring you with their music, or that you put on and you go, I really enjoy listening to this at the moment?
As I said, I enjoy listening to anything, and I was lucky enough last year to go overseas and drop into the North Sea Jazz Festival. Mm-hmm. And the highlight there was Salif Keita's set, and he's always been amazing. But
okay.
Yeah, it was great, It was amazing to watch 15,000 people, traverse into Snarky Puppy because they have some sort of global, what would the word I'd try and use? I can't think of it when I'm trying to think of Luke, but and then so. Even on the way here, there's certain moments in time where you go, wow, that's the thing. But, you hear music everywhere, you hopefully walking down the street. Anybody and anyone can inspire you. But I guess, I'm fortunate, I'm lucky, I'm in 4 decades of working alongside a musician who's done this for 6 decades, and every time he plays, he just presents something totally unique. So, you're constantly trying to, learn from that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about what it's like being in such a musical family, because
go ahead.
Well, I was listening to the album that you gave me, Wonder, Wondering, sorry, the Mistaken Identity one you did with Steve, and you guys have had that band together for. I know you didn't play in it right at the start, but you've been in it since the 80s. And you perform now with your father Bob, but you've also done that throughout the long history. So what's that like, where you're part of a family and the relationships of making music with people other than just we're friends or we're colleagues? It's like family.
Well, I was fortunate enough when I was 15 to be playing in a band called Blues on the Boil, and we had a TV program come in and do some publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, which they used to do, and they were asking all the questions, and I was at school, and they went, and what's it like playing with your father? And it actually made me think about that question, which then allowed me to develop the philosophy I have, which is he's actually Bob Sedergreen on stage, and I see him as Bob Sedergreen. And same with any of the people I work with. So, which really, caused a lot of sort of interesting conversations over my period of playing, because they go, he's your father. I go, no, he's actually Bob, which means I've been able to sit there and hear what he does consistently on a level that's really hard to really explain, because every night he goes to the keyboard and does that. But as I say too, if I'd actually listened to him and we'd actually spent, because we, as kids we play football, cricket, do all those things. We didn't really talk about music. There was music around, and I go to music concerts. But we didn't really speak about it. If I'd done that, maybe I'd be 500 times the musician I was, because that's what everyone tends to want to think, that you're in a family and you're just talking music and you're playing music and you're doing that. But in the truth of it all is, as I said, that would be the thing, is go, wow, if I'd only listened. But I was listening, but I was fortunate enough to be listening and going through music in Melbourne at a time where there was a very golden period of creativity and people playing, and and lots of gigs and lots of stuff going on. So that was there. But I didn't sort of cross over into music till late in my teens. I played a little bit. I started on the piano, as we all do. But my teacher thought that I would have been better with my technique of pumping petrol at the at the local service station, which stuck with me forever. Obviously, because you got to have a certain shape. Look, it served me well now. And then I crossed over to the flute, and I was actually playing a lot of football, a lot of sport.
Sorry,
that's all right. She wants to be part of the action.
Sorry, she does.
Which is great. No, that's fine. That's what this really is. It should be a cool, casual conversation. So where were we? Yeah. No, so going back to your first question, after you've been listening for a long, long time, you become a bit more discerning in what you're looking for. But you're looking for that moment. And every album will have a moment for you where you go, wow, that just has that magic. And, it can come anywhere or it can come anything. So, when I listen to the radio, I'm a bit annoying, because obviously I'll be, scouting over so many stations to find something that will sort of take my fancy. But there's just so much there. But it's deciphering what you like and what does it for you. For me, it's got to be, something with passion and something coming with authenticity from that point of view. Back to where we were in the jazz family, as we're known, and we are a jazz family, don't get me wrong, but we didn't grow up that way and, jam and do all those things as we do. But I was fortunate enough to, hear some really good music. But yeah, going back to where I was, which I was playing football, I was quite, I was all right at it, you know what I mean? But, got an elbow one there and I went, no, okay, that's not it. And sort of fell into music and then sort of where did I go? From piano to flute to saxophone, to soprano saxophone, which is not the place you want to start, yeah. So Bob was playing in a great band that played regularly called Anaji, and great saxophonist Richard Miller was selling his soprano sax, and Bob thought, all right, we'll see how that goes. But I wouldn't, as I tell my students, not the place to start, but an interesting situation. Yeah.
Were you doing jazz flute?
Jazz flute. No. But, jazz flute's an interesting concept, but there have been some amazing flautists in our time, Hubert Laws, what's his name, Jeremy Steig, just great flute players. And it's sort of a balance between, doubling, and a lot of that was required, yeah. So,
Yeah.
No, but I wasn't doing jazz flute as in... what's his name now? I just saw him because I was watching that Netflix documentary. Who's the guy who does jazz flute who's the movie we're thinking of, Luke?
Ron Burgundy.
Yeah. Yes.
From Anchorman.
Yeah, Anchorman. And who's the actor there?
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell, yes. So, yeah, how creative too. But, no, I didn't do any of that, So, yeah.
So, you're learning soprano saxophone.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel the allure of Kenny G?
Kenny G didn't exist when I was learning the soprano saxophone. If he had, I don't think I would have continued with it. No, look, let's put it into perspective. Kenny G's a fine musician, and he can really play the saxophone. But, he decided to go down a certain way of playing the saxophone, and that doesn't... I'm getting back to where we were before, Luke. That doesn't do it for me either, you know what I mean? But, wow, when you can play the saxophone like that, by all means. But no, Kenny G didn't exist. When did Kenny G come into in the 90s, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Songbird, wasn't it?
I thought it was the 80s.
Was he in the 80s? Oh, it'd have to be very late 80s. I think we need to get Leroy here to get out Discogs and check it out.
Yeah, probably.
Or you're on the phone now. So, yeah. No, Kenny G, no. So, look, soprano saxophone, very fortunate to have one of the great soprano saxophone players here in this country. I'm doing a gig, tribute to him soon at Montserrat. His name's Allan Browne.
Yep.
Right, and, obviously the father of the College of the Arts and that whole institution, and went on to sort of play improvisation music. And be the father of that, and I mean great soprano players over time. Wayne Shorter, there's another one. Branford did a great thing, obviously, when he crossed over with Sting and brought his thing there. Doesn't mean Steve Lacey's another great soprano player. So no, Kenny G can play the soprano saxophone by sure, but would he be one of my favourites? Well, I don't know. Look, I've got this whole thing as long as you're not being judgmental on a musician, then by all means. So, yeah. Have I listened to Kenny G? Sure. Can he sure play the saxophone? Sure. But is he for me? No, not really.
No, I was sort of saying it facetiously, but it's
no. But
Yeah.
it stimulated another thing, and it always does. But, look, great musician, but just not my personal taste. That's all.
It's been quite interesting, and one of the things I really liked about doing this podcast is just how many different people there are in Melbourne that making music, and then how many different things what is it that gets them excited about music, and it's so individual and varied, and there's still popular acts that maybe cross over, but it's still so unique to each person what gets them most excited about music.
Correct, and you know what I mean, and I guess that's the thing. I mean, you just got to walk in and you can hear great music anywhere, anytime, any style. But as I said back before, for me, it's got to be passionate and be authentic about what you're trying to do. So we mentioned James Brown before. James Brown, one of the greatest musicians of all time. And Maceo, and we go Fred Wesley, and we go through Bootsy, and we go through just that whole situation. So when I go and hear someone sort of playing that style of music, I want to hear them. Even though I don't need to hear James Brown. I was lucky enough to see James Brown live.
Wow.
Once. I should have gone the other time when he had Maceo in the band, but that for that reason I missed probably one of the greatest gigs that was here in Melbourne, which was at the Metro, I think, up the top of Burke Street. There's a venue now that's now a hotel.
Okay.
Metro, I think it might have been. So yeah, and he was there and Maceo was there, and I've got so many recordings of that era. But one missed gig that I went, I don't think I'm not going to go.
Wow.
So, but I did see James, but he was in a bad mood that night too. Oh. he was getting his singer to sing opera music, which is great, but sitting a lot on the organ. Where was this at? This was at the what is it? Rod Laver.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Later on in his career.
Wow. So you're playing the soprano saxophone.
Yeah. I've started there. Yeah.
How did you get across to the other saxophones?
Well, sopranos.
Sorry, I just...
Scout is decided. You can't do paradiddles on the couch, Scout.
I'm just going to grab her. All right, sorry.
No, don't be sorry, Luke.
If we go from, what was the journey like from soprano saxophone into everything else that you've done?
Well, then I guess from the soprano saxophone is emerging into alto and tenor saxophone. Across that board, and then obviously honking along there, doing what I was doing, and then fortunate enough that around that time Bob put together a band for 2 students at the College of the Arts who weren't sort of getting the recognition they do. As you know, Luke, you attended an institution, and sometimes people get noticed, and he went, right, I'm going to form a blues band for them. And when one of the guitarists he'd actually taught in school, and he said, when I grow up, you'll form a blues band for him. So Bob formed this band, and it had a sit-in policy, and it was going well. And then, one night I got up and played, and just built it on from there. So yeah, that was the transition across into bands.
Cool.
So at 15, I'd done my debut gig at what was called Shea Jazz, which was when the Limerick Arms, which is an amazing institution here in Melbourne, closed down for a second. The guy who owned that moved across to there in Kingsway called Shea Jazz, and it was a jazz festival, and Bob and I decided, Bob said, we'll do a duet gig, and from there it sort of just developed. But, if I go back and listen to some of those recordings, they're really unique, but I guess I went through a whole journey of research and really delving into the music and getting a greater understanding and working towards a deeper understanding. But, once you touch that, you never stop that. Yeah. So once you actually, you get into something, you want to keep going further and further. So with the blues, researching all the great artists, going to the gigs, lucky enough to be watching Hey Hey Saturday one night, and this young guitarist comes on, and the screen is, the speaker of the little TV is vibrating because he's playing loud, and Daryl's got his head on, and that was Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Okay.
And so we went to that gig, and that was great. So yeah, and then sort of got across and really sort of gave me a great grounding in blues music. But again, blues is, as I tell my students, I'll never teach a blues scale. And they go, why not, Mr. Sedergreen? It's actually in the book. And I go, because that's a scale. The blues is a feeling. So yeah, again, from that point of view, got to really have a connection with that. Yeah. So yeah, that was the start. And I played in that band for a while, and then Mistaken Identity, or Loose Arrangements was running, which was a band by Steve, and then Mistaken Identity. And Jerry Civarella, who's a great saxophone player there, got the gig to go and join Kylie Minogue back in those days. And then, then I transversed across to, transversed. You see, I make my own language up here, which I do, as you know, Luke. across to that band, and then that was another journey in itself as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like being in that time where you were as like a jazz artist, but touring on, you know, some quite big stages, that, you know, is it seems like quite a unique time period in that it's not the jazz of, say, the 50s or the 60s, but it's still some of the artists from that era playing and pushing their music forward, and then you're a young musician coming through, you know, playing within that, but from the Australian context too.
All right. Well, so my philosophy with the blues was, you know, giving it from the heart, coming from the heart and being authentic about it. And when I moved across to Mistake Nat Adderley, and we had a residency at a little jazz club called Bennett's Lane back in the day. And the philosophy came from when I played football. So when I played football, my best mate turned around to me and said, oh no, his sister said, you play jazz? I go, yeah. He says, yeah, I know what that is. That's Louis Armstrong and clarinets and that. And that stuck with me. So when when Bennett's Lane first opened, we had a residency there on Wednesday and Saturday nights, I think. From memory. My memory leaves me. But anyway, I loved walking out of the gig. And, you know, there was lots of laneways down there and hearing people going back, oh, if that's jazz, I really like it. So that was the sort of context of where that started. So,
Okay.
You know, because it's such a, you know, whether I'm a jazz musician or not, yeah, maybe I am. I mean, you know, as a jazz musician, you never play the same way twice. And you're always striving something. But I think all musicians are striving for something. You know what I mean? And, you know, it doesn't. You can name any of your musicians you like. They're always striving for something. So, you know, going back to Snarky Puppy and seeing how many people really wanted to go see that gig at North Sea was, like, amazing. But seeing them create that sort of hypnotic effect that they have with their music was really, really interesting. And so, but when I went to North Sea, I'd never been there before, but I've been told that it was just like a assault on the senses because there's so much music going around.
Right.
So I made a decision when I did go there, which was great, to take snippets of everything. So, you know, where did I start? I started with, I think it was Dollar Brand was playing there, and I went across to, I'm trying to think his name now, Phil, he was amazing too. He's wearing he played with Prince and everything. I'm trying to think, you know, grabbing bits and pieces. There's three, obviously Kenny Garrett was playing there. He's probably one of the great last sort of saxophone players playing in that style, having that sort of rich history. So I definitely wanted to go see his gig. And yeah, Salif Keita was the other gig that was just blew me away there. But there were so many other things that were just going on that really just took your fancy. And I was lucky enough that Marcus Miller and James, what's his name now? I'm trying to think of the keyboard player. He did Tutu. He'd done everything. These guys, you know, produced so many albums together. We're giving a little like this, not podcast, you know, sit-down interview.
Oh, yeah?
Where Marcus talked about jazz and said that period, and he's asked questions, that period will never come again. It's a golden period, but something like that will. And something like that might happen again. So I don't know how we got back to we need to get back to your original question, Luke. But yeah, look, it's really intriguing. I think that's, for me, it's like always trying to find something, and you never know when you're going to get it. And you never know who's going to be doing it. So, you know, everyone goes, oh, you're a jazz musician, your record collection will be this, you know, Miles, Coltrane, blah, 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 blah. But no, it's just totally wide, you know. So, yeah, you know, seeing Prince here was great too. Seeing Sting here was great too. Seeing, you know, even I didn't go see Taylor Swift, but, you know, she's got something going on that allows her to communicate with people, that allows her to do that. So, you know, jazz for me is what is it? It's a word, but it's a word that can be anything. But it's a word that you've got to be true to yourself, I think it is. So, but to play jazz in its 50s style, going back to what you asked me, Luke, which was interesting, yeah, people still do that, and people did that in those times, and were developing it, and it was great to be young and coming up and seeing that and having the ability to play with some of these masters. But the word itself or what it means to me is totally different to what it might mean to someone else, which means I want to go to a gig and I want to go and hear my record collection and you'll hear that across the board, yeah.
Mm. Well, with the
it's like gridiron here. I just throw a curveball, but not deliberately. I'm just trying to.
No, of course.
There's always a lot going. I guess the great thing about this, and the great thing for you too, Luke, is there's always a lot going along in people's heads. But when you play, the key is nothing should be going on, and the only thing should be going on is listening. Right. So whether and listening and trying to grab, and I guess most of us keep doing this because once you've touched the light and you've had that moment, you always want it, but you're not always going to get it. But it's there, and I think we're lucky enough to still be able to do that or to hear that and to want that. But the music crossed over from that really great time where people were lots of gigs and stuff like that, to it diminishing to what it became, which is, no different to what happened in COVID. But we didn't have COVID, where as the elusive door deal came along, and people wanted to do this so much that they did what they needed to do that. So for me, I kept to myself sort of pretty authentically and just made sure that I was. I had a day job or whatever it is, so I could actually treat the music with the respect that was his. So, yeah. So I don't know how we got there, but what I'm basically saying is, you can turn anywhere and hear great music and great musicians doing it. And they don't necessarily need to be of a jazz. I guess I am a jazz musician in its truest, purest form, but the way the word has been used is no different to rock or funk or world music. As soon as you title something, you put a title on something, you lose its essence. I mean, how would you describe Snarky Puppy,
Yeah.
They're very popular and they're great musicians, don't get me wrong, but they've got something going and they had. And that's what's his name? The guy who was with Marcus there, and it'll come to me in a second. Not Jason Miles.
Like Michael League runs Snarky Puppy.
Yeah, and he said to him that the guy came to him when he started acting and said, I'm going to start this band. And he said, look what they've done and look how they've created something. And I was just here recently too.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And again, luck has a lot of things to do with things too, You've got to work hard, but luck can play a part in allowing yourself to go to that next level. Say with Dig, when Dig came out and, a great Australian band, part of the acid jazz sort of era. Cat Empire, a great example of working really hard, but things going right. And I was lucky enough to hang out with, Gil Askey, who was a Motown producer, and I'm sure you'll hear his name crossed over because he came in here and made himself a Melbourne legend before he has left the stage, as Ron Carter calls it, and I think it's a great way of putting it. Who said, he was at a gig and he was taking the Temptations and all the guys weren't concentrating on the sound check. All the guys weren't concentrating on the sound check because they were looking up there, I think they were in Japan, and Miles was up there.
Okay.
Right, and they're all watching Miles, and I want to watch Miles, and you try and get together. And he said, for every Miles, there was 30 or 40 other guys just as good, working just as hard, pushing him and everyone to where he was going, but didn't quite end up with the recognition of the same thing. So there are musicians everywhere, and my greatest thing is hearing people say, I played at school and then I didn't really play when I finished again, but it's there, and that's what really creates it. People create music, actually, like the song, people make the world go round. Well, people make music go around. So there you go. So getting back to that, jazz, I don't know how to describe that anymore. But you can describe me as a jazz musician because I am in its truest form. Even when I teach, as you know, Luke, when I've come and taken a stage band, it's gone, hang on, this is not uniquely as anyone else would take a stage band, and we're lucky enough to go to the States twice with the school. Was a trumpet player. What was his name now? And he was giving a workshop. He came out here too. Bob Lark, his name was. Right?
Oh, yes.
We did a couple of gigs. So he came and he was playing along and he turned around the guys there and goes, this guy's no junior stage band director. You know, you guys got to understand that. You know, just out of the blue. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, and you would have been there playing the drums in your youth, going, you know, that doesn't quite make sense, but it does make sense. So yeah, I come from a different place.
Mm.
I'm a bit like, I will go to use a foot analogy. Ross Lyon said, they asked him at halftime, what did you do with St Kilda this week? And he said, what happens if a spaceship landed? And my 23 players went into the spaceship and I came back here. So no, I think differently, I work differently, but in the essence of, as you know, someone asked me, what's Bob's secret? Well, Bob's secret is his secret is love. And he starts with love across the piano. He spreads it across the piano, and then it spreads into the band, and then spreads across to the audience. And the great Dave Holland described that same thing with Miles Davis. He said he was in a club, and Miles was, because research has been always my thing, trying to find out more. He was in a club, and there's a lot of, it's on that Miles podcast, not podcast, it would have been an interview, but prior to podcast. So I think you should check it out. Who did Danny Glover actually did the thing. It was done in the 90s, so. And Dave was talking, he said, there's a lot of catting going around and everyone's all noisy, and then Miles just got up to the mic and he put his trumpet there and he had this cone of silence, and then from there it spread to the band and to the first, third, fourth row. So yeah, if we can create that, we can create that. So yeah. Sorry, Lukey.
No. I wanted to ask.
You ask whatever you like.
You know, because you mentioned that you needed to have a day job and that you do this teaching as well as the playing.
The teaching's not a day job now. I'm talking about when I was younger.
Okay, sure.
So when I was younger, a lot of people were doing lots of gigs, which were great, but also they were supplementing their music by being part of like a band, like a police band, an army band, a navy band, and they were doing teaching, and I didn't get into teaching till really later because I didn't want to be that teacher who was going, oh, that's great, Luke, yeah, no worries, but thinking about my next gig. So really it was from a point of view of how am I trying to get around back to where I'm talking about, that I had a day job all the way through while I was playing when I was younger. And eventually ended up at the Virgin Megastore selling, I worked at Discurio, and the Virgin Megastore was big into records and selling that. But I had other day jobs too,
Yeah, right.
Law firms, accounting firms, you name it, been there, done that, which allowed me to treat the music with the respect that was, even though there were lots of gigs going on as well. Probably wasn't good for my health because, you go to work and then go and gig till 3 a.m, get up again at 6 a.m, and then do whatever it is, yeah.
Wow.
Because, the key being is I wanted music to be this special thing that took its essence. And same with teaching. And, as I said, I didn't get into teaching much later, but it had to be that. I didn't want to be the teacher who's going, where's the next gig coming from? Because teaching is another form of communication that allows you to want to communicate and pass across and actually, have this collaboration to allow something unique to happen. So that becomes lifelong moments, memorable moments for people, and hopefully they take something and do something with it, because in the essence music is everywhere, and without music the world doesn't exist. But unfortunately we aren't in a world where music is taken to that essence unless you're that top percentage of people that are unable to do this at a high level and get remunerated very well for it. Yeah.
So what was your spaceship moment that has inspired or brought out this deep thinker, unique and creative, drive that you have?
I think it was always there. It was there when I played football. So when I was playing football, I had a unique style of playing football too. It was just harnessing it and finding its right direction. Luckily, I found the direction of music. Even though I was part of, a jazz legends family, it wasn't just a thing that done that. Sure, I wanted to play and do that, But, we jam more now than we probably would jam back then. But I just think that, to be true to yourself, which you are, Luke, and which most of the people I run into too. But then you've got that parallel pull, which is you want to do this full time and you want to play this and you want to create. But in essence, that's not out there as much as I would. And, I'd love to win the big Powerball in America where you win, $1 billion. And the main thing would be, for me, would be setting up a place where people could play and continue this journey. Whether it's, just occasionally, whatever. Because, in Bob's book, he talks about this, and I think it's just a classic story as he was doing a workshop somewhere. And then, I was doing a lot of workshops too. And he comes out, and the young student he's just been teaching is in tears. And Bob's thinking, okay, you maybe didn't enjoy the workshop. And it's like, no, Mr. Sedergreen, I have to say goodbye to my trombone today because I'm in year 12 and I've done with that. And I'd really like people to have, correct. So I'd really like people to have the opportunity to really continue to share that and whatever ever it is, whether it's coming to the gig or playing or not thing. Because, going back to what we were talking about before is that sometimes you meet people and they go, I play for a little bit. But sometimes people don't find the right thing. So I'd like to have that opportunity for people to share in what they feel music is from an authentic point of view, and give them a place to play.
Yeah.
And do that, and an open space. So, for instance, night dedicated to funk. All the funk musicians come down. They play funk or jazz or whatever it is, or blues or whatever it is. But also, that's it's great. As I said. And as you know, I don't know, I told the story, when I was walking, when I was doing what I was doing and playing and going to work, there was no music in schools as much. There was some little people and people having lessons, and those guys would go on. And as that changed, I'd see people walking with instruments to schools, and then music became the cool thing at schools to do. And, and there's like, wow, you know what I mean? And all these things that took off. So, I've been fortunate down the track that people give me opportunities to do things, and I'm still doing what I love doing. But the main thing is seeing what those people go on and doing, and allowing, as long as the music's still inside them, and they get the opportunity to explore that from whatever point of view they want to explore that.
So have you seen much change then in, like, if we look at your students, because, the world of music has become so different, and like you're saying, like, sometimes like the music program is cool, or...
Well, it became cool. I reckon it became cool, and I think that's totally different to what would have been happening in my scholastic situation. But that's all right, I wasn't doing much music then. I was for the sport, which is great. But it was great to see that transition. So I think the change in students, I don't think students have changed that much, but I think it's, again, what happens when they leave, because, I'm in the secondary system, as we know, Luke, and then go on to what that next level is. And then I was lucky enough to be in the 80s, and after I'd finished work, I'd pop into the College of the Arts and see all the classes going on there, and, and the excitement about that. But if it's got nowhere to go or nowhere to grow, and then it becomes something where you feed back into the system.
Yes.
That worries me a lot too. You know what I mean? Because music should be about freedom. That's what we're looking for. Freedom. Over anything. And the freedom for you to go, I've worked hard, but I get on the stage and I can't. All right, I'll ask you the question. Was there a gig? This is not your podcast, Mel, it's mine. But where was a gig where you played and you can't remember, and you just came off and you went, oh my God, what was that? You must have had one of those moments. You don't have to know.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You've gone, wow, what was that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what we search for. Whether it's there, whether it's with the students playing some AMB stuff, or playing in a stage band, or going to a gig or whatever, that's what we're searching for. That happened. I was lucky enough last year for when we went to an establishment that you visited, but before we visited on my time as well. Not the first year we were there in 2012. Generations in Jazz.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But there's great videos of that, but we won't talk about that. See, I've searched across YouTube. You'll be surprised what I find. It's Caravan, I believe. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, we can rub that out. But the key being, the key being where we're going is we're playing last year and we came off stage, and actually it's happened a couple of times with this school I'm at. Right, and I'm looking at the bass now because it's the same thing. And one of the students came up and said, "Was that our band? Was that our band?" And that's what I'm trying to pass across.
Wow.
Let's try, but I'm only human, and I'm only doing what from my point of view. And as we go back to Kenny G or anything, it's just from my point of view. And if people love it, they're great. And if they don't, well, as long as they're not judgmental, that's cool. So, yeah. And we had that moment when we played the Jaco Pastorius piece, Come On, Come Over. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's what I'm looking for. So have students change as they've got a lot more opportunity, and they've got a lot of, in schools and some great programs out there and amazing people doing things, which is great. So it's just then I want them to still be able to walk up to me and go, that's what I say. When students walk into my room and they say, "Okay, Mr. Sedergreen," I said, "What do you think the main thing I want you to have?" "Oh, my saxophone, my books." Turn up to class and I said, "No, this word, F-U-N. And then what do I want? I want you to really have a lifelong love of music forever. If you go on and play it, and that's part of the conversation I have too, and it's like I've taught people to go on and have done that and other things and done other things, that's great. But if I run into you, I want to know that you still love music the same way that you've always loved music, and you'll be doing it in a different way. So you might be, I worked in a law firm for a long time. You might be going to court, but you might be presenting it in a way that's a musical way. You might be teaching, you might be presenting in a music way. You might be going and working in a supermarket, presenting it in a music way, because music has the power to do that. So, yeah, there's the spaceship moment. But if I could have a spaceship, I'd want everyone to be able to enjoy that moment. But the only thing we can do now is they have that lifelong love. And it's going to have an ebb and flow. It's going to have ups and downs and ins and outs and all those things, as you know. But the key being is if you can turn on a record, or you can turn on the TV, or you can go out to a gig and you still feel that and you still get that inspiration, that's what it is. But but you go, yeah, I love music. But it is a drug. But it's the best drug in the world. But not from that point of view. But it's once you've touched that, and that's not ever been my thing, Once you've touched that, that's the thing. But, I think you're asking me is, where do we go from here? Well, we've gone from people going and working their way into institutions and being taught by some amazing people, but then from then on, it goes into a different direction. So, I'm bashing a microphone. It's a very expensive one. So if we can move from that, but all we can do is love music. And, we'll finish here and you'll put something on and you'll go, yeah, I like that. And I'll go, oh, yeah, that was my thing. Oh, no, we actually both like that. Or did you hear that? Or did you hear that? I mean, that's the thing, So, yeah.
Well, we've been playing this game on the podcast.
Okay, good.
Where I get
finally
each guest to ask a question of the next guest.
All right, okay.
So I've got a question for you from the previous episode.
All right.
Which was jazz musician Lillian Elbazi.
What is special about the Melbourne music scene? What makes us unique? Do we have a distinct sound? And if you think we do, what is that sound? What do you think it sounds like?
Okay.
Well, thank you for listening to part 1 of our interview with Mel Sedergreen. If you haven't picked up already, Mel loves to tell a story, And despite us coming towards the end of the podcast, we're at the 45-minute mark, and he's just been asked the guest question. But we actually have another half an hour left of the conversation. And rather than cutting it down, he says some interesting things. So I thought I'd just put it in 2 parts. So have a nice rest of your day. Enjoy part 2 another time. Or listen straight on to part 2 right now. I'll upload them both at the same time. Enjoy!